That does conclude our discussion of end of year 2. It is a pretty short data collection. Do we have any questions in chat from this one? Okay. So let's jump into end of year 3. And end of year 3 is the heavy lifting. So let's discuss what is needed to get a jump start on the behemoth that is EOY 3. Okay, EOY 3 has several key data collections. By file type, it's the single largest data collection in CalPads. Considering that during the data collection window, there are 3 other submissions, it should be clear why it's imperative to start early, even in advance of the end of year snapshot processing window. In general, the data in end of year 3 is collected to satisfy the requirements of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, and the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or IDEA, reporting. The files that are used to submit this data are the student incident or SINC file, the student incident results or SIRS file, and the student offense or SOFF files. These 3 files together provide counts of suspension, expulsion, and offenses to determine persistently dangerous schools and discipline information for students with disabilities required by the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. It also helps with the reporting of behavioral incidents involving restraint or seclusion for students with disabilities. So these 3 files provide our discipline data that is used in several ways. We then have the student absence summary or STAS file type. The data from the STAS file is used as a dashboard indicator required by the Every Student Succeeds Act and LCFF statute. So that is the chronic absenteeism indicator. We then have the SENR, which in one instance is used to calculate cumulative enrollment. The counts from SENR records are used as the denominator in suspension, expulsion, and absenteeism rates. So that is one use of the SENR record for cumulative enrollment as the denominator in those rates. Another use of the SENR record is for graduates and completers. SENR records provide a count of students who graduated or were completers in the current academic year. Early grads and late grads may not be included in the 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate. We then have homeless program or SPRG records. These provide a count of students who were unhoused during the academic year. And we have the student English language acquisition or SELA record, which is submitted in end of year 3 for students who took the summative LPAC and tested as proficient, and so were reclassified as RFEP. This data collection will impact all aspects of your LEA, so it's important to receive timely and accurate data, especially if your data stewards are not 12-month employees. And the staff involved in the end of year 3 data submission, we do have a small collection of staff listed here with site administrators, district administrators, the English language coordinator, special education staff, attendance clerks, the attendance supervisor, and NPS school staff. And we will discuss NPS schools in this section as well. Though this is not an exhaustive list, EOY 3 does impact nearly every aspect of your LEA. And so if there are staff that need involvement that are not listed, that's okay. Please do reach out to those staff if they are needed. Okay, so these are pre-snapshot submission activities. Like in our end of year 1 and end of year 2 sections, these are the activities that you can be doing now prior to May 7th, so prior to the opening of the end of year data collections. Student enrollment data that is submitted throughout the year is used to calculate cumulative enrollment. However, student exit information is required to certify end of year 3. So every student will require an SENR record to close their academic year enrollment after the testing window finishes. Students who are RFEP during the year are reported. And those who are RFEP'd over the summer must have their status date correspond with the period of enrollment. So if they are not enrolled over the summer, they'll need to have their status date correspond with the period in which they are enrolled. Homeless student program records submitted at any time during the year are counted, so there's no need to wait to submit this data either. So please do begin submitting your homeless program or SPRG records now if you have not already, in addition to SENR and SELA records. All right, let's talk about incident and absence activity prior to May 7th or prior to the beginning of the snapshots. Incidents occur throughout the year as well and can be submitted continuously. The 3 files used to submit incident data, that's the SINC, the SIRS, and the SOFF, each use replacement processing methods. Such that updates can be made in one of 2 ways. First, by submitting files containing all records throughout the year, you can update the entirety via operational keys. Or second, updates can be made by only extracting new incidents with previously unreported incident IDs. This, of course, this second method depends on your expertise and your student information system functionality, but at the very least, an early submission of the 3 file types will allow you to spot potential errors or inconsistencies as long as you understand the relationship and necessity of all 3 files. So EOY3 is a big data collection, but there's a lot that you can do now to report your incident data in SINC SIRS and SOFF files. Once you've reached end of year, you're able to begin work on the STAS file, and then we have ongoing work on the enrollment, English language acquisition, and program files. So there's quite a bit that can be done now to tackle end of year 3. And again, when you do begin submitting these records, please do check on the DDs page. Not every LEA will have end of year DDs populating now, but when you do submit records, it is important to check those for the most up-to-date version of your data discrepancy errors. Okay, let's talk about a common pain point in end of year 3 with NPS schools. And this is a common pain point, and the pain point revolves around the question, are LEAs required to submit data for students at non-public schools? The answer to the question is yes. LEAs are required to submit incident data that occur at non-public schools. LEAs need to work with non-public schools to collect and report the data that reflects the time the students attend the NPS school during the school year. LEAs and NPS schools must have policies and procedures in place to identify, document, and report incidents involving restraint and seclusion for students with disabilities. LEAs have the burden of submission, therefore must facilitate data collection and verify completeness prior to the submission. Reach out in collaboration with your special education data coordinator to collect incident data from your NPS schools. An early introduction to your SEDS coordinator and your NPS contacts will allow you to proactively instruct them on the required data elements to set a timeline for retrieval. And to help you with this, we do have videos on the CSIS YouTube training channel regarding NPS school discipline that are linked to in the notes section of this slide. End of year 3 contains 11 aggregate reports and several supporting reports. These reports provide counts and lists of cumulative enrollment, graduates and completers, RFEP students, homeless students, student absenteeism, and incident data. To understand and interpret your end of year 3 reports, we strongly suggest turning to the data mapping guides in the user manual for end of year 3. The report mapping guides provide data elements used in the counts for aggregate reports and will assist data stewards with report review and verification by identifying source documents and systems. And we do have a link to the end of year 3 data mapping guides, and they are located on the same page as the other mapping guides for the other data collections in the CalPADS user manual. Okay, incident data is a critical piece of the end of year 3 data collection. We know that the data is used as a state indicator, and so it is highly scrutinized. The CDE's State Superintendent of Instruction, Tony Thurmond, has released letters regarding state guidance for new laws on discipline, and more recently, reducing disproportionate discipline in schools. The early submission of incident data will allow for the analysis of discipline data and an estimation of the suspension rate. There is not a report in CalPADS that calculates suspension rate. But through familiarity with the CalPADS report mapping guides, you can identify and count suspensions and expulsions using the incident report codes on report 7.12. It should be noted that while this report may provide the most complete and pertinent incident data information, it is not an aggregate report, and so it's often overlooked simply because it's not required to be reviewed in order to certify. So this is a supporting report, but it is quite helpful for you in calculating the suspension rate for your LEA. Okay, and here are the links to the relevant training and guidance resources for end of year 3. In the CalPADS user manual, we have pages for the student absence summary. We have pages for each of the 3 incident files. Pages for RFEP reporting, student programs reporting, particularly in end of year 3 for homeless programs, and student enrollment or SENR records. The CSIS YouTube training channel has our end of year data population trainings. These are file specific in end of year. And then we have our end of year reporting and certification trainings, which are submission specific. So these will be end of year 1, end of year 2, end of year 3, and end of year 4. We have the relevant FAQs for end of year 3, and we've got relevant flash communications as well. 208 deals with RFEP students. 203 deals with the post-secondary status for students with disabilities. Flash 182 deals with homeless SPRG records, and Flash 159 deals with restraints and seclusion. We have an NPS student incident guide, as well as the NPS student incident training video, an incident FAQ, and a student's absence summary FAQ, all available for guidance in your end of year 3 reporting. Question, is there an order in which we need to submit the SINC SIRS and SOFF files? Yes, and that is the order. So the first incident file that you should submit is the student incident or SINC file. The second incident file you should submit is the student incident results or SIRS file. And the third incident file you should submit is the student offense or SOFF file. You should submit those in that order. That is the suggested order of submission because it helps to avoid validation errors. You will receive validation errors if you submit, for example, the results of an incident without first submitting that incident information on the incident itself.